From the headquarters of Tell Us Your English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Suini Gray. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has condemned the governments of Colombia, Spain, and the United States. He believes they ordered the opposition not to take part in the presidential election scheduled for the first quarter of this year.
I'm telling the opposition to keep its word. I want to have elections and to win. The government of the United States, the Colombian oligarchy, and the corrupt government of Spain have ordered the opposition to leave the electoral process because they are going to lose. We will see each other in the Dominican Republic at the dialogue table. Nominate your candidates and let's have elections. I am sure I will win with the support of the people.
Plan known as the Plan de la Patria during an official event with a group of women who asked the president to run for office in the election called by the National Constituent Assembly.
I thank you all the love that I have received during all these years. I am telling all of you, women and girls, to each and one of you, count on me to be your presidential candidate for the period of 2019-2025.
The United Nations weighs in on the possible talks between the Venezuelan government and opposition scheduled for next week in the Dominican Republic. Spokesman Farhan Haq said they continue to remain optimistic. He said the organization believes there still are avenues for the two parties to reach commitments on key issues. However, Haq was not as willing to comment on the call for elections in the first quarter of the year, which has caught everyone by surprise.
Well, yeah. We're aware of what the various parties, including the government and the opposition, have been saying about the early elections. Meanwhile, we continue to support the regional efforts, particularly those led by the Dominican Republic, and we hope that the government and the opposition will be able to reach a much-needed agreement.
The new Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez will be sworn in tomorrow after 2 months of demonstrations and strikes that have left dozens dead. The former opposition alliance candidate Salvador Nasralla has called for mobilization in Tegucigalpa to prevent President Juan Orlando Hernandez from taking office.
People from Tegucigalpa and everyone who has come out to protest in the capital city, I invite you all for tonight, January the 26th, to mobilize. We are starting at 7 p.m. and we are going to walk across the city and visit many different neighborhoods. Tonight we begin the Opposition Alliance March against the dictatorships, and we are also preparing another march for Saturday, January the 27th.
On Thursday, lawmakers chanted "Out JOH" and "Murderer" as the new Congress met for its first session. The Opposition Alliance says there was fraud in both the presidential and parliamentary elections at the end of November, while the government party is calling for dialogue. A judge in Brazil has confiscated the passport of the former president, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, and ordered him not to leave the country. On Wednesday, another court upheld a corruption conviction against Lula and increased his sentence to 12 years in prison. The confiscation of the passport relates to a separate case in which the former president is accused of lobbying for the purchase of Swedish fighter jets by the Brazilian Air Force. Lula and his supporters insist there is no evidence of corruption against him and that the court's actions are politically motivated to prevent him from standing in October. Parents of the 43 Ayotzinapa students who disappeared in September have protested over the negligence of the government. Secretary Alfonso Navarrete Prida, who is still denying them a hearing. In a communique, the family of the disappeared and the student committee leader, Ricardo Flores Magnon, explained that they want to meet with Navarrete Prida to resume talks. The parents demanded that the Mexican authorities go ahead with the investigation suggested by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to try and get a proper answer as to what happened to their children.
We are here at the Secretariat of the Government asking the Secretary to meet us. Even on day 28, We were told that we would get a hearing with Miguel Osorio Chong, but it didn't happen. This is why we are asking for a new hearing so that we can discuss these topics.
The music of the Caribbean and Latin America has a lot of similarities, but surprisingly, Caribbean music isn't very popular in Latin America and vice versa. So we want to explore that, and so we're being joined by soca artist Kes Devantala of Trinidad and Tobago to talk about intra-regional music and cultural partnerships.
Good night, good night.
Hi, Kes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi. It's good to be on your TV.
I understand that you performed at a concert in San Andreas in September last year for the 30th annual Green Moon Festival. What was that experience like, performing in front of a Latin American audience?
It was actually pretty amazing because it was a new crowd, but I think that the energy that we share, we share that in common. People had such a good time. They really knew only 2 songs, and other than that, they just enjoyed the music and enjoyed the vibe. You know, I think we have a lot in similar between the language barriers. The music is the same. The feel, the energy. We all celebrate music in a very similar way. So it was a great experience.
So your experience, soca artist, what would you say are the similarities between soca music, which stems from Trinidad and Tobago, and the music originating from Latin America?
Well, I think that we both share different influences, like African roots, European roots, and we all combine them to create our own thing. And I think we've all done that in our own particular ways. Just as how we share different different ways that we eat our food. You know, it's the rice and peas, and there's so much similarities between them culturally that, you know, I think that the only difference is, of course, the language. You know, but when it comes to the beats and the vibrations, I just believe that there's such common ground. And I think right now in the world, a lot of people are sampling Caribbean beats and sampling Latin beats and really creating almost one genre of music, you know?
Right, and you're one of the few artists from Trinidad and Tobago trying to break into the Latin market. Why do you think that this is important?
I think it's really about bridging the gap, you know what I mean, the world. And I think that we use our music to just to break down the walls that we kind of separate between us. And I think that it's just a lifelong mission of mine to explore the world through music. And I've had the privilege of not just playing for San Andreas. I did the Antillean Belgium Festival, which there are many Latin. I opened for Daddy Yankee, Pitbull, all these major acts, and all the crowds are the same. They enjoy themselves, the vibration of soca music, calypso music. Because, you know, the Caribbean sound is worldwide, and I've seen a lot of Latin acts as well dabble into, you know, reggaeton really comes from soca beat. So it's amazing to see the evolution of that music just kind of coming all around the world, and we have so much in common, but yet there's so much work to be done.
There's a lot of work to be done. Kes Devantala, thank you so much for talking to us, and have a wonderful carnival season.
Yes, blessings to you. Thank you.
And we'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
South America, we are all descendants from Europe, so it should be the first important agreement before others that we are. If you really believe that Mercosur is also a good opportunity for the European Union, especially after Brexit, and I think that it's a natural association because in South America, we are all descendants from Europe. So it should be the first important agreement before others that we are negotiating.
Welcome back. Massive layoffs continue in Argentina because of the cuts imposed by Mauricio Macri's government. They've even affected the cultural sector, including the National Ballet and the Classical Dance Academy. We have more details in the next report.
The National Ballet and Classical Dance Academy was created in 2013 as part of the Ministry of Social Development. In 2017, under Macri's administration, it was transferred to the Ministry of Culture and has since suffered from serious economic cuts.
This ballet academy began with 32 open auditions in all territories, and we offer classical, contemporary and folkloric dance classes. We had tours where all of our expenses were covered by the government. We offer free functions and gave the opportunity to people to take a class and experience ballet dancing.
The cancellation of the Dance for Social Inclusion project involves the dismissal of 60 dancers, teachers, coaching staff, and musicians, among other workers.
It was devastating and painful for us. We did not expect it. Although these last 2 years were difficult to continue with the ballet academy due to the bureaucratic issues, but we never thought that the ballet would cease to exist. For our director, Iñaki Urlezaga, it took him by surprise. In fact, until January 4th, he was preparing all of our shows for 2018.
Professional dancer Gaston Cabrera said that when he found out that the government would no longer fund the project led by Iñaki Urlezaga, the first thing that came to his mind was that he was losing a family.
We shared everything. We know each other very well. The first thing that crossed my mind was that I'm losing a beautiful family and I'm losing what I love to do. It was very painful. We have classmates who have children who are pregnant, teachers who have to support their families. Now they have lost everything they had.
The massive layoff by Macri's government is part of the new economic plan that has been implemented in different public institutions. Meanwhile, authorities reported that they will not back down. The Ballet Academy will continue with various cultural activities to demand its reopening.
A new investigation about the missing Argentine submarine, which disappeared in November with 44 crew members, has started. Federal Judge Marta Yanez has ordered 4 searches in different areas of the Mar del Plata naval base. The investigation team will search through paperwork from February to October 2017, which could shed some light on any possible technical failures that might have happened. And Chile's Congress has approved free education, higher education for the country. The issue of education reform has been at the center of protests for many years in Chile. But social movements say this law doesn't go far enough.
While Michelle Bachelet's government celebrates reform aimed at giving access to education to the poorest students, the designation of a new minister opposed to free education does not meet the expectations of social movements.
We all think that the reform is not satisfactory at all. It doesn't respond to the requests of the society that we have promoted for years. We think this is just a masquerade, not a real reform.
This education system reform was promised by Michelle Bachelet. And even though it was presented for approval just before the end of her government, it still doesn't solve 3 important issues. Only some social groups will profit from the reform. The controversial loan supported by the state was not cancelled, and free education will only work for 60% of the poorest students. This is why the student leaders of the main universities in the country, along with the teachers' associations, have gathered to analyze the new scenario. They've also started planning actions from March, when the new Minister of Education, Gerardo Varela, will take office. Varela is known as a strong opponent of free education for everyone.
Education cannot be seen as a commodity and as a social right at the same time. This is what we want to say to Gerardo Varela, the future minister.
Before, reform seemed to be moving slowly towards free education. Now, with Varela, that goal seems to be impossible to achieve.
y a partir de esa propuesta convertirla en
We will start with our proposal and we will make it a symbol of our fight. We will act together, we will march, we will meet with authorities and negotiate, but we will also fight when needed. And we will resist when policies turn against all this.
We will work together because we know that we need a united social mobilization for the cause of education. We have to keep working for Chilean education. As we said before, the reforms are not enough.
In this scenario, it is uncertain whether these social movements will be able to mount their challenges.
8 years after Haiti's devastating earthquake, which left over 220,000 people dead, some neighborhoods are still fighting to get clean water. The people of Delmas are asking international aid organizations and the government to work together to provide them with a new tank and bathrooms. According to the World Health Organization, less than half of Haitians in rural areas have access to clean water, and only 24% of all Haitians have access to a toilet. Over 500,000 Haitians were infected by a cholera epidemic, which spreads through contaminated water.
We need water. If the people don't have water, what will we do? This tank doesn't work. Water is life. A container of 20 liters costs 10 gourds, $16 US. There are people who don't have that. When this tank worked, we had water.
We would like to get drinking water. We would like them to build a water tank for us so we can drink water because water is life. Without water, we can't live. We need the state to build a bathroom. This is not bathroom here.
Meanwhile, in Barbados, the government is addressing the fecal water controversy that has resulted in several countries issuing travel advisories to their citizens, warning them of possible health concerns posed by the water situation on the island's south coast. A team led by the Foreign Affairs Minister advised that water is being tested regularly, and 4 out of 5 samples tested negative for Salmonella, E. coli, and fecal coliforms.
We will realize through our last set of tests that we do not only just have a breach, we do not only just have a recirculation from the effluent or the outflow into the influent, but we also have fractures in the inlet line or sanitary line. In other words, we're getting groundwater penetration, and it's a mix of all of those which is creating the overflows. And because we believe that those fractures are worsening, that is why we're having some challenges sometimes maintaining the overflows. But that notwithstanding, we have added a couple of other mitigation measures which we are trying to put in place very quickly, and we're accelerating at least one of the interim measures to be able to control or divert the effluent if we need to, so that we can continue to retard or slow, in effect, the overflows in the road.
The mayor of San Juan in Puerto Rico, Carmen Yulin, said that the devastation caused by Hurricanes Irma and Maria in Puerto Rico were the result of climate change. This during an interview with the writer and senior correspondent for The Intercept, Naomi Klein. Yulin said that the island still hasn't fully restored power, and she said even though it's a colony of the United States, justice only reaches a few and not all.
To this day, about 35 to 40% of Puerto Ricans don't have electricity. And I like the word in English. You say they don't have power, because there's a double significance to that. We don't have as much power as we should have because we're a colony of the United States. And I know that insults some people, but you know, it is what it is. You have to call a spade a spade. And so we need to educate our population to know that this is a direct result of global warming.
In Panama, eviction caused by urban development has become a growing trend. Experts say that this gentrification policy increases the country's housing crisis and affects the real estate boom, which continues to be a serious problem.
This is Brooklyn Cito, a district located in the center of Panama City. The Ministry of Housing evicts people with the promise of making improvements to the area. However, people are skeptical.
They think that the minister won't carry out their promises of allowing us to continue living here. The subsidy that they are giving us is not sufficient to transfer us to other areas. Those of us who have not been able to move went to stay with family members.
After being forgotten for years, these people were evicted with a $1,200 subsidy, which is insufficient when rent is not below $300.
As a resident, I think everything is up in the air. We are not asking for luxury. We just want what is fair for the people. They are playing with our dignity. This is a lie. They are being deceptive and nothing has been clear. The people really need the subsidy.
This commercial center was also evicted. Experts say that this is due to speculation in the real estate market that increases the value of the land.
A large part of the city has been taken over by real estate speculation and costly apartments, and this is also happening throughout the country. Living in popular neighborhoods and in commercial areas is now less accessible. The poor have to look for alternatives.
Social movements say that in Panama, one of the fastest growing countries in the region, there are more than 1,200,000 homeless people. It's a sign of the inequality brought by the policies of neoliberal lawmakers.
The Nicaraguan poet Claribel Alegria died at the age of 93 after being diagnosed with a lung infection. Clara Isabel Alegria Vides wrote more than 60 books of poetry and received the Reina Sofia of Spain Award, which is considered the Nobel Prize of Ibero-American poetry. Her work was associated with the committed generation in the 50s and 60s, which spoke out against injustice, along with intimate confessions. We take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
What the fuck? Stop driving me. Stop driving me.
I don't care if your dad's a cop.
Chingue su madre.
Welcome back. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will have to wait until February 6 to know if he has succeeded in having a warrant for his arrest dropped. The warrant was issued 5 years ago after Assange skipped bail to avoid extradition to Sweden over rape charges. However, Swedish prosecutors have since dropped the charges. Assange has been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2012. Even if the arrest warrant is dropped, Assange could be arrested for breaching bail conditions. His lawyer argues the warrant no longer applies. The Spanish government has been to court to try to stop Carles Puigdemont from becoming president of Catalonia. Our correspondent Vincent Montagut has all the details.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Saludos a todos.
The Council of Ministers has just approved to file an injunction in the Constitutional Court to prevent the swearing-in of Carles Puigdemont as president of Catalonia. The government of Mariano Rajoy is pushing forward its plans despite the fact that the Council of State, the highest advisory body in the country, is firmly against the injunction because they feel it's not necessary. The Constitutional Court must now make a very complicated decision to either accept the government's injunction, which might damage their credibility, or reject it, which would be another blow against the People's Party in their handling of the Catalonian crisis. The Council of State's report is already a setback for the government because they have established that an injunction cannot be filed as a preventive measure. It's something no neighboring country ever does. Carles Puigdemont's party, Junts per Catalunya, has filed a criminal complaint against Vice President Soraya Sáenz de Santa Maria, given that the current government performed a coup against the Catalonian state. We will keep you informed as the story develops.
We thank Vincent Montagut for that report. Call it tit for tat. One day after Venezuela expelled the Spanish ambassador, accusing Spain of meddling in their affairs, Spain has returned the favor, expelling the Venezuelan ambassador from the country. Spain denies any interference in Venezuela's internal governance, but says it will continue denouncing human rights violations allegedly committed by the government. Venezuela's foreign ministry gave the Spanish ambassador Silva Fernandez until Sunday to leave the country. No word on when the Venezuelan ambassador, Maria Isaya, has to leave Madrid. A recent study by the Norwegian School of Economics has found violence has decreased in the U.S. in areas where marijuana was legalized. The U.S. government has said they want to reverse some of these laws, though. More in this report.
La cifra de homicidios relacionados.
The investigation published in the Economic Journal shows that homicide rate related to drug trafficking has dropped by 41% in the states on the Mexican border where marijuana has been legalized.
Publicación del Economic Journal.
Takes money out of the hands of criminal organizations and transnational drug cartels, but it also allows law enforcement to be able to focus on more serious crimes. In addition, I think that it opens up the conversation towards larger ideas of harm reduction instead of criminalization, of treating people with compassion instead of throwing them in cages to try to change their behavior.
Actualmente son 29 los estados.
Medicinal marijuana is allowed in 29 states, in the District of Columbia, Guam, and Puerto Rico. There are also 9 states plus including the District of Columbia where recreational cannabis is allowed. Around the country, 6 out of 11 citizens support legalization.
11 estadounidenses aprueban la legalización de esta sustancia.
As you can see, I mean, the excitement around legal adult marijuana is it's evident.
Pero los avances en el acceso al cannabis.
The progress made in access to cannabis is a danger because it is still illegal under federal laws. General Attorney Jeff Sessions denied regulation, which prevented people and businesses from working with cannabis. Even in the states where it is illegal, Daniel Yee, an associate of recreational marijuana Chop Company, believes it is a mistake to try to stop progress.
Adelantos en esta materia.
California, the nation's biggest state, the world's 6th largest economy, has legalized commercial marijuana. So I think the momentum is there. I think this is just noise. We as a business that looks at the long term, you don't invest $150 million into legal cannabis and operate in 3 states when you react to the news of the day.
El Congreso tiene la capacidad de...
Congress is able to legalize marijuana on a federal level. There are at least 3 pieces of legislation being drafted. Meanwhile, experts state that the fight against marijuana won't stop. For them, Jeff Sessions reasons lack of scientific support. When he was senator of the Republican Party, he once said, "Good people don't smoke marijuana."
En esta audiencia que las personas buenas no fuman marihuana.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Francesca Manuele, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
India celebrated its Republic Day with grand parades showcasing the country's cultural diversity and military power. In New Delhi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited leaders from Myanmar, Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia to celebrate the event. It marks the day independent India adopted its constitution in 1950. And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.